So this video will cover how to assemble the roll joint. The roll joint has all these pieces that are here in front of us. These three pieces are used for the final assembly with bolts. So we're going to go ahead and remove those for now. They won't be needed for gluing. We're going to focus on gluing these pieces together. So these logically get grouped into three sections. This is R3 and R10, R11 and R6, and then R1, R2, R4, and R7. So first off, we'll glue these little top caps. This is a servo. If you notice in R10, this is cut for a particular type of servo horn that comes with a microservo that has two side apertures. And so this little window on R3 has the same thing. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and glue that on top of here. The second one, R11, has a more normal horn, and R6 is set up to line up with that. Now, the reason why there's two different top round plates in the kit is because of these different servo horns. It also allows you to put two different end effectors on these plates and then interchange them without having to mess with all the bolts. This is the main roll joint. Now the roll joint has on it, as you'd expect, it's actually very symmetrical. R2 and R1 go into the sides of R7, just like this, and we'll glue in here and here. And then on the side of R2 is a hole for a servo horn, and we'll cover that with R4, again with glue right here. So I'll go ahead and assemble this. There's one side, let it sit. Okay, that's it. Now, when you glue R4 onto the servo horn cover, you can line it up. There's witness lines on R4, and you'll see there's lines across the servo horn hole, so you can line them up properly. You'll want to make sure this is pretty square. There's some wiggle room for adjustment here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get as square as you possibly can. You know, the better the right angles here, the better the piece will be. I find the glue sets pretty quickly so that you don't have to hold this too much. So I'm going to go ahead and use some glue up here. I find to glue R4 on, you're better off in order to glue R4, I think you're better off putting a drop of glue in each quadrant around the horn and then dropping this piece on top. Again, a little bit of glue goes a long way. Okay, there it is. So that's the assembled front block for the roll joint. Set that aside for a minute. Let's go ahead and work on these plates. Same drill. We're going to be basically putting a drop of glue on each quadrant, drop the plate on top. Getting a little bit of glue goes a long way. So let that sit over here for a minute. We'll put the other one. Get a little bit of debris out of the way. There we go. Okay, there you go. Alright, so in this step, we're going to assemble the roll joints servo and the extra fitting pieces that we did not glue from an earlier step. So you see the main joint here, we glued this up previously. You will need 6 number 4 by 1/2 inch screws and the associated nuts, 1 of the Tower Pro micro servos, and then you're going to need R8, R9, and 1 of the 2 front end assemblies. Now in my particular case, I'm going to build this example with this horn that has the little cross pieces on it, and it will fit into the R1 plate like this. This one has the cross pieces on it. You could just as easily though use a different horn that comes with a micro servo that's just plain straight. So let me set this one aside here. We're not going to use that. Alright, so what you want to do is insert the servo. The axis of the servo here needs to go right into the crosshairs of the fiducial mark on the roll plate. Go ahead and put the screws in and then tighten down. One step beforehand though is, as in a previous step with the pitch joint, we need to widen the micro servo holes using this 1/8 inch drill bit. Okay, 1 hole widened. There. Again, I recommend doing this by hand because it doesn't take that long to do. And if you try to do it with a drill, you have a very good shot at breaking the tabs on the micro servo, and then that's very hard to replace or repair because the servo is so small. You'd almost be better off buying a new servo at that point. Okay, they're now opened up. So once again,
key here is make sure the shaft of the servo passes through the middle of the fiducial mark on the roll plate. So the servo screws. For the benefit of the camera, you can see what we're going to do here. We're going to put a nut on this thing and then tighten it down. Again, as I've done on previous steps, I don't super tighten down the servo yet until I get the other screw in place. So I'm going to put the other screw in now. Put the nut on. See how this is tightening up? Just bracing the nut with my hand right now. Tighten that. Now I'll finish tightening down the other one as well. Okay, that takes care of the servo. Now, the next thing to do will be to stack up this little rubber gasket and the two plates. And the reason why we have the rubber gasket and the two plates, R8 and R9, is that the height of the servo does not line up perfectly with 3 levels of 1/8 inch plexiglass. So the little spacer here is less than that, and it fills up just that little few hundredths of an inch that we need to make sure that the top plate here will seat nicely when it's done. Okay, we're going to finish off the assembly of the roll joint. To finish this, you'll need this spacer. It's made of foam rubber. You'll need R8 and R9. And in a previous part of the roll assembly, we went ahead and glued a horn into the front rotating plate, and that's a separate step. So to do this, if you look closely, there's a screw right here at the bottom of the servo, and this notch in R8 is intended to go around it. So R8 has to go on first, followed by the gasket, followed by R9. We make a little sandwich, and we insert a screw. There's little holes in the foam, so everything's all set to go. And we'll go ahead and put a screw in on the back side, nut in on the back side. Tighten it down quickly. There's one. Go ahead and align the diagonally opposite one, because I think that tends to get everything lined up once you do that one. There. Go ahead and put the next nut in. Tighten that down. And now we'll just finish the job off with the other two. The reason for the gasket, as I said, I think in an earlier step, is that the distance from the bottom of the servo to the top of where the servo horn is located is actually is a little bit taller than 2 thicknesses of 1/8 inch plexiglass. And if you put 3 thicknesses on, it's too tall, and then the servo can't grab the horn properly and rotate the round plate. This little foam gasket makes up for the few hundredths of an inch, which makes for a much tighter seal and much more reliable connection. So it's very, very helpful. You could actually do it without it, but it then puts a little more stress on the servo shaft than if we raise it up by a little bit using this little gasket. Okay, that's all set.